Hey, we got a good one for you today. This is an audio-only episode. We have Runner on the program.
Yeah, we have to specify audio only now because we have entered the pantheon of the greats, and we are now doing podcasts with video. So the first one of those is available now. It's with Ambrose Kinney-Smith of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard / the Murlocs, and it's on YouTube now. You can check it out, on your computer or smart device. But yes, this one is with Runner, and I was introduced to Runner through Josh via the song Eggshell, which I connected with, and I think a lot of other people can as well. It talks about like mental health and just kind of struggling with that, so that was cool. But he's got new music out right now.
His new single, I Only Sing About Food, is fantastic. I love it, and I've had it on my personal playlist for a week now, listening to it to and fro work. And I highly recommend it, and I can't wait to hear the rest of his new album. This is the first single off his new record, which he does talk about in the interview.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You might be listening to this interview, and you might think, these guys don't seem classically trained. And the truth is, we did not go to Podcast U. We aren't even podcasters per se. This is all a ruse. We're literally just a band that was we're trying to get that thing off the ground and be a band. So, this felt like a way that we could make connections and kind of infiltrate the music scene unbeknownst. I don't know if I used that word correctly, but if you are intrigued about our music, all the music in the podcast is actually music that we've recorded. And you can search us on Spotify or Apple Music by searching First Names, but the easiest way to connect is probably through Instagram, and that's at First Names is a band. So check it out.
Yes, help us fake it till we make it, and until then, enjoy the interview. Bye.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we like to bamboozle them,
Yeah.
Like we just, oh wait, this is recording? Yeah.
Drum samples, I use a lot of stock Ableton drum samples. But then, because I don't like to get bogged down with having too many options.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's probably like only 5 kicks and 10 snares that I'll use in the whole catalog, but I'll like pitch them and do things to them after the fact. But it can just be exhausting to comb through just a bunch of like boom, 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 boom. You never know what it's going to actually sound like in the song. So I keep it limited, and I've never had to dip into like Fruity Loops or other programs to get what I'm looking for.
That's also like the paradox of choice, right? Like when our brains aren't built to handle more than like 7 options or something. And now there's like so many options, especially when it comes to like creating.
Yeah.
It's just super paralyzing. So I think it's just smart to like limit your options,
Yeah, a buddy of mine gave me like a terabyte of drum samples, and they're all on this like external drive that I have
Right.
not gone through because it's just, what's the point?
Yeah, right. It's so much. I was listening to somebody talk about how they have all these different synths to set up, for producing music, and they're like, yeah, I usually just, it always comes back to the Juno. I just come back to,
Yeah,
So
I have 2, and I don't think I'll ever need more.
yeah. I don't know. I think there's something too about like when you're minimizing, when you create parameters for yourself, it somehow allows you to be more creative. And I know I'm not the first person to say that, but it's interesting how it works. It seems paradoxical.
I'm a huge proponent of that. It's why I end up recording more acoustic guitar than electric guitar and like piano and things that just automatically have one sound to them that you just kind of stick to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're kind of nerding out right now. Not everyone listening probably makes music, but you have to be intentional with limiting yourself now. I feel like when we were growing up, we honestly didn't have anything. So it was like we were limited. And now when we start buying all this equipment and they have a billion sounds on it, you have to start limiting yourself, because there's not even just the sound, as you know, there's the effect that you put on the sound and the way you EQ it. I was actually watching this studio run through of what you did on YouTube. and you're
Oh
playing that
yeah.
piano behind you, and you're
Mhm.
like, with the right, if you put some like duct tape on the strings, and it sounded really cool, like I don't know, like harpsichordy or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're like, if I put the right effects on this, it could probably sound like an expensive synth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like the ingenuity.
Yeah.
I like being creative with
Now
a
I've
few
got
things.
like kitchen rags on it, which is I think better than the duct tape. And I wish I had done
Okay.
that in the video instead. The duct tape is like cooler for the video, but less useful for actual songs. The kitchen rags are amazing.
Wow. Can we hear something? I just want to hear a couple things.
Yeah, I guess it just sounds. Well, I'm tripping over the mic. It just sounds darker. And then, like, without it, it's just pretty bright.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
There's
that-
something sensual about that second one.
It's funny that like there's all this like engineering and everything that goes into like creating a majestic instrument like that, or like I feel like it happens so much when you're recording drums and it's like, yeah, this is like engineered over years to be like the perfect, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, but it sounds better when we put a towel on it.
Yeah.
you know.
Or every drummer I know that just like rolls up to the gig and puts their wallet on the snare.
Dude, yeah, that's like, yeah, exactly.
And your wallet's
100%.
different all the time, but somehow you're just trusting that, and there's like,
Yeah.
there's no precision to it, but you just know that it's gonna sound better.
Yeah, it's so goofy. Like you'd think that like it's whatever like so many people want, and I guess you have to like start at a point so you can modify, but it's just funny that
Yeah.
that's just how it is.
That's how it is.
You got to throw a little T-shirt on it, and it's like, oh, here it is. This is
Yeah.
better.
Exactly.
So you've been alias Runner for a while now, right? How many years has it been since you started this Runner alias project?
2017. Yeah.
Well, was it your first release, Eggshell?
No.
No?
I released an album on Bandcamp in 2017, which whenever people are asking me for like strategic advice with music, I tell them don't do that, because for a brand new project, if you just drop 10 songs on Bandcamp, no one is going to take the time to listen to all of that. But I was so excited. So that was like the first thing I released. And it was on Spotify for a little bit too. It's still on Bandcamp, but I took it off Spotify. And then Eggshell was like the first thing that I released that actually made people listen to it, I guess. For probably like all of 2017 and 2018, we had like 60 monthly listeners on Spotify or something. And then we put out Eggshell, and that's when we kind of started to get a little bit more attention. So in some ways it feels like the first release, because it was like the first time I released something and people who didn't know me listened to it, but it wasn't the first Runner release. But then a lot of those songs that were on that 2017 album, I re-recorded and put on the compilation from last year. So like the whole first half of Always Repeating is 5 of the 10 songs from the album in 2017.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Strategy wise, like you said before, just throwing something on Bandcamp into the ether is not the best move or whatever. But when you're making music, you don't really think about it. You're like, I guess I'll just put it online and see what happens.
I just wanted to put it out, and I like believed in it as a collection of 10 songs.
Yeah.
So it was important for me to do. And like, yeah, strategy can be important, but it's not something that you should think about when you're actually making the stuff.
Right.
And like, I would never listen to my own strategy, but if somebody comes up and asks me for like a good idea for strategy, I'm like, I don't have any good ideas, but I know I did this and it didn't work out in the way that you're probably hoping for a release to work out.
So when you put Runner on to like Spotify and stuff, was there anything different? Did you just upload it and then somehow it like got some traction and started, bouncing around the internet, or what happened?
Do you mean Eggshell?
Eggshell. Sorry, I said Runner, didn't I?
Well, Same thing. I think the difference was that just I'd been playing so many shows around LA in 2018 that people did start to kind of like take notice of the project, but those first recordings were pretty rough. So with Eggshell, I learned a little bit more about production. I felt like I just like made a better recording, and people were just excited about the song, and that kind of felt validating in a way, because I had been just like really feeling like I was getting nowhere for a while. And I hadn't written a song in like 10 months, and I was starting to get to that point. Like I wrote it in 2018, and I was getting to that point like, oh, maybe all I had was that album on Bandcamp that no one listened to. And then I wrote that song, and I was like, okay, well, maybe there's something left in the tank. And then it just kind of kept going.
That's really encouraging. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, but I got to stop for a second and just harp on Eggshell, because that song, it knocked me over when I heard it. It was so great. I mean, it hit me in a really hard way, but in a really good way. And I sent it to Shelby and a couple other of our friends, and, of course they liked it. But that song, I still listen to it. It's still on playlist, and your other songs too, but that was definitely the entryway.
I think for a lot of people, that's the entryway, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I did also want to like talk about it just a little bit, because I don't know, Josh sent it to me, and I don't remember if there was any like context with him sending it to me, but I don't know. Personally, I have like mental health stuff that I go through. I have like, I don't know, debilitating OCD, whatever. We don't have to get into it, but and it felt so just perfect, I guess, for what I was going through. And I know it's like probably a very personal song, which is interesting to me in general overall, how you can, when you make something more personal, the more it can connect with just everybody, which I find interesting. But I also would like to, I guess, just dive in a little bit into what was the, like, did you feel like it was important and it could be impactful to people, or were you just writing down, this is how I feel and I'm just going to make a song? Because it felt very important to me when I heard it. It hit me, so, and helped me. So thank you.
I'm glad. I think definitely I was just writing down how I felt. And I think I'm always maybe subconsciously trying to make a little bit of space in the music for listeners or audience. But it's not, it can be conscious, but it's also kind of like a defense mechanism. I try to write very personally, but then I also don't want it to be like hyper autobiographical in a way that other people in my life could like identify themselves as characters in the song. So I intentionally like blur some of the edges of like what is my reality and what is kind of like the fictitious world of the song. But I think in doing that, I'm also making room for listeners to have enough specificity that like the song feels unique and contained, but also with enough vagueness, I guess, that it can be applied to so many people's situations.
Yeah. It's funny because when I think about that song, it like was very impactful to me just with my mental health stuff and everything. But it's funny that like one of the things that pulled me in and made it feel cohesive to me is like a reference to Mario, which is like so, it's just so interesting that would be the thing that's like, oh, this feels like me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
it's cool.
Yeah, that was a line that I had from a different song that I was like kind of hell bent on getting into a song.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like a reference to a night early on with like my roommates, and somebody talked us into playing like the longest length of a game of Mario Party. And it was the three of us against one bot, and we started at like 2 a.m. and it went until 5. And then after all of that, the bot won.
How depressing.
I know, and I was like, this is not going to be worth it unless I get a lyric out of it. And then I had to like adjust the lyric to make it fit, so you know, it wasn't actually Metal Mario, but that's like, you know, maybe a good example of the way that like that's the literal story of like the song, but then kind of like
Uh-huh.
massaging it into something a little bit more fictional that gives everybody something to latch onto.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like you do that in a number of your songs where there's enough literal, everyday sort of, I guess, mundane lyrics that anchor it into reality. Because some of your, it's very emotional. A lot of your music,
And very
but I
mundane.
feel,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's the part that I relate to is
Hmm.
the everydayness of it, the slog of just being alive sometimes, and I don't know. That's part of the charm, I think, of your whole project.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's kind of the backbone of a lot of what I'm doing because I always wanted to write, but I thought that I had to like lead a more interesting life in order
Hmm.
to write.
Mm.
And then I started every artist that I love, whether it's music or literature or something, is more about finding, just like the beauty and the mundanity of life. And I was like, I can do that. I have a very mundane life. And these early songs were all songs that I wrote like in the morning before going to work my shitty restaurant job. And that's what I was like, oh, this feels important to the project that like that's what I'm going for kind of as frequently as I can.
Yeah, it feels true. I think that's a big thing. It feels
Yeah,
very
honest.
true and honest. Yeah, and what a pleasant surprise too. Just the fact that you play banjo. How did that get started? I mean, hearing banjo just trickle in over like
Yeah.
programmed drums is just so cool.
I mean, I think the banjo came before program drums for me. Um, I'd always been into folk music and singer-songwriter stuff. Um, and then in college, I did more like band stuff, playing electric guitar. And then it wasn't until after college that I started recording. And doing that at home, I gravitated more towards like acoustic guitar and banjo. And I went to college in Ohio, so I guess there's like some of that like Appalachian folk tradition that exists there.
Hmm.
And I just really love all that music. And when I started recording stuff at home, I didn't have a drum set and I don't know how to play drums. So I was just like, I guess I'll use a drum machine.
Right.
And just kind of from that necessity of needing drums but not playing drums, but knowing how to play banjo and liking banjo, I felt like I was able to create kind of an accidental aesthetic of like the drum machine with the banjo, which has then just
Mm.
become, really integral to everything I do.
Yeah. What? So, I guess going back even further, what was the origins of you starting to play music? I guess what got you into it, and like how was that? Were you writing stuff in like high school and stuff like that?
I wasn't writing stuff in high school. I think I wish I was, but I was too embarrassed.
Mm, yeah.
Um, I wrote some stuff in middle school with like my really bad middle school band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I started playing music at a really young age. I started playing trumpet when I was like 7.
Oh. Oh. Okay.
And then that was my main thing for a while. And I went to a high school that didn't really promote creativity as much as like competitiveness.
Right.
So if I wanted to do music, I would have to do like jazz, which I love, but not trying to disparage the jazz world too much. It feels like sports sometimes. It's like really
Mm.
competitive, and you have to be like really technically good at your instrument in order to then reach that level where you can be creative. Um,
Right.
and there'd be like competitions and stuff, and I kind of fell into that world for a while.
Mm.
Uh, Deep down knowing that I just wanted to write, but feeling like that was unattainable for me. So I was just gonna practice trumpet and like be good at that. Um, but I picked up guitar when I was like 12 and was always doing that on the side. And then it probably wasn't until after high school that I realized that I really didn't want to do jazz and I really just wanted to write. And then I started to like push that a little bit more.
Did you go to college for jazz?
A little bit, I guess. Like I got a scholarship to go play, but I didn't like study music. I just played in the jazz band at the school. So
That's impressive.
worked out in
Yeah,
my
that is
favor. And my trumpet playing has only gotten worse every year since then. So
Do you like jazz?
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I really didn't. I don't know. I guess it just having listened to your music, I just wouldn't have expected that was the background.
I
of
know
origin. That's cool, though.
it's kind of a dirty secret, I guess. Like, oh, what's supposed to be this, like, you know, kind of like effortless, simple singer-songwriter stuff comes from like a reformed jazz geek.
So do you like write music, like write it and read it, and is that how you write it? Like actually write it down? I don't even know. I'm not
Very,
illustrating
like,
what I'm trying to say.
sheet,
Like, do you write
you're
it?
talking about like sheet music. I
Yeah.
sometimes, although very rarely. I don't think I've written sheet music for anything since like 2019.
Mhm.
But I had to do it then because I was trying to do this like long saxophone part, and I couldn't
Okay.
keep it in my head for long enough to just like keep playing it out. So I actually had to go in because it's like 3 saxophones all playing together. So I had to actually go in and make sheet music for that.
Oh wow.
And that kind of like theory background is helpful at times because it enables me to like layer on instruments and build chords in a way that feels very easy for me. But I don't know. I don't think it's very necessary.
I'm sure the more
Yeah.
tools you have in your arsenal is a good thing.
Yeah, why
I can't
not?
imagine. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So when you went from, I guess, just playing in bands, I read somewhere that you were touring and like recording and you weren't really happy with the results. And Runner was kind of born out of necessity of just being like, well, I want to play music, but I don't want to do what I'm doing right now with this band.
Yeah, I had a band from college, and you know, touring is a generous word for what we were doing, like basements and stuff like that.
You had to drive there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we were just like a 4-piece band, and I didn't really understand anything about production. I was just like, oh, we sound good at rehearsal, we sound good at the show. If we just get into the studio and do a good performance, it'll sound good. And it never sounded good. And I was so frustrated. And I just told myself, like, if this is really what I want to do, I'm going to have to buckle down and figure out how to make a good recording.
It's not cheap either. It's an expensive mistake. We did the same thing.
Yeah.
We were disappointed multiple times. Usually we're getting rushed out the door. They're like, your 2 hours are up. Bye.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll send you a song.
And it's so stressful. And I was like, for the $200 that like you could spend doing like a couple hours in the studio, you could also like buy a little bit of recording equipment and have way more time to do all that. So that's exactly what I did. I was like, I'm not paying anyone else to do shit anymore. Like, I want to just be in control, even if it takes me 36 hours to record one guitar part.
Yeah. It sounds like maybe you're on the same like kind of trajectory as like we were growing up playing music when you're 12, 13, whatever. And then when you're in high school, like me and Josh would like try and go and record at places, and it was just like, yeah, it sounds like trash. And that also coming with like people like, oh yeah, we're playing with so-and-so now, and like, oh, actually they bailed, they're not playing anymore, so we're gonna have to record his parts too, and all that stuff that goes along with it. But it's funny because now I think just the default program, I would imagine, in kids' heads is, well, obviously I would just record it on my computer. That's the starting point, you know? But like being right in the middle of like right as that was starting to happen and it feeling like you still have to go to a studio, it was hard, especially when like you're asking for a certain thing and they're like, yeah, but this is what everybody else does, so this is what you probably want.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I didn't start recording at home until I was 22, and like these kids are 13, and you know, even if you're just like making beats on your laptop or something, that is such an amazing skill to be cultivating at that age.
For sure.
Shelby brings up a good point. I think we're all around the same age. And so we all kind of grew up in this time where when I was a kid, the internet was like almost nothing.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like kind of like, oh, you go to Pokemon.com or something. But then it was like, then you grow up and you're like, you know, it's everything, you know, it's everywhere.
Totally.
And so we had that weird like in between where, you know, what's MySpace? Oh, what's eBaum's world? Or, you know, there's just these like little things you're finding. Yeah. And now kids are just completely growing up with it. I mean, when we were little, or not even little, just like in middle school, we knew we liked, you know, like punk rock or something. And then it's just like, how do we get it?
Yeah,
you
how
know,
do you find it?
We destroyed our parents' computer with BearShare.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, so it's, you know, it's
Didn't know it was stealing.
Oh my God. I remember BearShare.
Yeah. But just sharing the information, like we did not know what we knew. We had a feeling of what we wanted, but we had no idea that it existed or how to attain it.
Yeah.
And just now with information everywhere, I mean, you know, the kids, they know how to get an audience, and there's a how-to for everything online, like how to start a website, how to learn guitar, how to do this or that. And I think it's just interesting that we grew up in a really unique time where
you can appreciate both. You know?
Yeah, we can appreciate both, but also, you know, I'm not as hard on us in our early recordings because we literally, you know, we're just classically in a garage sucking, not knowing how to get better.
Yeah.
You know, there was no tutorial.
And just access to home recording equipment has exploded in the past 10 years. Like, I don't even know what kind of like home audio interface you could buy in like 2006 or something. But probably probably not nearly as good and way more expensive than like an $100 Focusrite that you can get now.
Yeah. Well, the thing about all that too is like when you start like, okay, well, maybe I can just record this into the computer. Don't even know that you need an interface. And there's so many little things that you need to like master to record yourself.
Yeah.
It's such a huge process, especially if you're trying to do something intentional that's different, because it's like, okay, apparently I have to do this myself, but that means I have to learn what compression is.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
And it's just, yeah, it's such a rabbit hole.
And my brain still, like, I think kids today are so quick to be like, oh, you can just look that up on YouTube and like watch a video of somebody doing that. And
Dude,
I'll do that for everything, but I won't think of it for like 20 minutes while I sit there and I'm like, do I look up the manual? Or it's like, no, just look it up on YouTube. It's there.
Right, it's on your phone. Yeah, for sure.
Just to be devil's advocate though, it's probably, you know, if you can figure it out in that 20 minutes, that's probably better than looking it up at least a little bit. Because, well, you'll remember, but you might learn how to do it in a way that not everybody else is doing it.
True.
You might like find something that, you know, there's so many recordings like, well, we're like, hey man, how do you make it sound like this? And we'll take it to a professional and he'd be like, well, you guys recorded it too well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's happened. Yeah, for sure.
There's some stuff on the next Runner album that's recorded onto the internal MacBook microphone. And it sounds great.
Dude, that's the crazy thing. Sometimes we'll have just we used to have this like recording space in someone's backyard, and when we would just demo stuff out, we would just like record it onto our phone. And a lot of times I'll be like, man, we recorded this poorly, but the drums, there's something about this.
Oh, iPhone,
you know,
like you doing like iPhone voice memo.
Yeah,
there's something special about that mic and that compression. There's a lot of that on the record too. I think just like finding ways to work that in. My drummer, you guys are in Austin, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my drummer is in Austin, and he records like all the stems and just sends them to me. And he always puts an iPhone in the room and just does room mic iPhone. So we just have that extra option in the mix later.
I thought that I was like, we should mix some of this in, like, I don't know, like years ago. And I always forget. I never even think about it, but it's like, it's the easiest thing ever.
It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've like thrown my phone inside the piano and recorded just like the sound of like the hammers going.
Oh yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. There are a lot of weird tools at our disposal now, which is fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's just like something that we have in our pocket all the time, and it's actually solid. That's what people talk about, like making videos and stuff. It's like, dude, like you've got like a better camera than anybody in the past, like, you know,
millennia.
Did you ever watch that movie Tangerine?
No.
All shot on iPhone.
Really?
Yeah.
See? Yeah, exactly. There's so much, the potential.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a good movie.
But I'll keep making excuses anyways.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you don't have to. Yeah.
your instinct to do that, though, I feel like is part of the charm of Runner too. Not to gush too much, but the fact that you would think about wanting to hear the hammers on the strings, it's you can really hear some of the lo-fi and more of the, like I've heard the bones of the song, even though you have like some, patches and electronic drums and that mix match of high tech and low tech, and wanting to hear your fingers slide up and down the strings, and that keeping that rawness, and I guess and intentionally doing that is part of what makes it warm and charming.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that that's something that we've hit a point in recorded music, and like maybe I sound too jaded for saying this, but like it is very there are a lot of people that can make things sound really good and really clean. So that there's almost like a lot of us have this craving for imperfection and things that sound a little bit more alive with their kind of like physicality and things that you might have scrubbed out in the past, where you're like, actually I think that this makes it feel like it exists in real space.
Yeah.
But it's
texture.
weird that we're at this point that you have to then actively put that in.
Dude, yeah, exactly. And I think when I listen to music, like you said, it's so, I don't want to say easy, but it's way easier now to get a perfect recording, that when there is texture or grit, I'm like, oh, this was intentional.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, and you appreciate it. I feel like that's with your music videos too. The fact that we do have these, high def cameras in our pockets, and yours feel like a VCR homemade movie. It also matches the music. It's that warm and charming, cozy fireplace feeling that you get with the music. So I applaud that, and that's also everyone who sees that in 2022 is like, this was intentionally done. It's not like he only could find a VCR camera from 1998.
It's harder to do that. Like I've got the camcorder right here, and you have to bounce it into the computer in real time. So if I shoot 30 minutes on the camera, I have to sit and let it go for 30 minutes. So I've also adopted like this like 2000s digital camera.
Yeah, the cool pics.
Yeah, which has been fun.
But you're right though. It's more of a process. It's more difficult to get something on film. I literally,
it's like objectively worse in quality. But...
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I bought a 16 millimeter camera like not too long ago because I love 16 mil. And anyways, but the process is insanity to like, there's like two places that like process 16 millimeter film, and like just threading it through the thing, and like not knowing if you're getting any footage, white balancing, which I didn't even do. I got like a bunch of footage back and it was garbage.
Yeah.
And it's so expensive too. It's like more expensive. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're right, just to make it objectively worse. It's funny.
Yeah. But it's that we crave so much, because there's so much,
it feels real.
There's so much digital perfection right now that we're kind of just inundated with it.
Right. So this is going to be changing gears a little bit, but I have been wanting to ask you about just I guess it's not fully changing gears. So this is where you record, right? Like you're sitting in your room right now?
Yeah, yeah.
One, I guess, because this is what I'm dealing with right now, so I'm literally just asking for advice. As far as making it a space where you can have access to everything easily, and what's that called when you like, I don't know, like you make it like everything easy to
workflow.
Yeah, like so to maximize your workflow. Do you think about that when you're like creating it? Like, okay, I put the computer here and like over here and everything's ready to record.
I'm moving in like a couple months, and I want to have even better workflow at my next studio setup, because I do like I have a friend who's got a studio that's maybe the same size as this, but he has it set up in such a way that everything is plugged in or mic'd and ready to go at all times, and it's all coming through this board, and you have to unmute the channels. And I think that workflow is kind of unparalleled. Like if you can just hop on something and it's already set up, because I will rationalize my laziness in here, where
Dude, 100%.
I have one input. So I have the mic, and then it runs through a 1-channel preamp into 1-channel input, and then it's on the computer. So I'm just moving one mic around this room constantly. And if I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to go set up the mic, I'm not going to do that. And it sucks because maybe I'm not getting what I need, but it also can sometimes, this is what I tell myself. It works in my favor because I'm like, oh, I don't really want to re-record that, so let me just like fuck it up digitally and see what I can do. And then sometimes I end up with a kind of like creative sound that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So maybe that is part of my workflow, is like inhibiting my workflow. But dude, I do dream of like, I don't know if you can see, I have all my synths and stuff just like stacked on top of the piano back here. And if I want to use a synth, I have to take it down, get the power supply. I put it on my lap because I don't have a keyboard stand in here. And then I plug it in and then I do it. And then if I want to do a different synth, I have to like, and I get so exhausted just from doing that. Like, I'm so lazy about that.
I know. I think I was literally talking to my friend on the phone about this the other day or yesterday. And I talk about it all the time, where it's just like, I'm just constantly trying to overcome myself. And it's so interesting that like, if I even timed it, like I put off miking the drums in my room for forever. And if I would have timed it, it took me like 8 minutes. It's insane that the little tiny
it's all the bending over. The like, oh, I gotta like
it just sounds like such a big thing. You make it some goofy thing in your head. And
I know.
If I could just turn off my brain, that part of my brain, and then just move forward. I've been talking about this concept of like, I guess if like a shark stops swimming, it dies.
Yeah.
And just like, I was like, oh, if I could just take away all the rationalization of, if I do this, it'll make me happy, or if I do this, it'll make me sad. Take all that out. And if I can just be kind of a robot and just be like, there's none of that. I just do stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels, I don't know. So that's what I'm thinking now, I guess, all the time.
I mean, I totally feel you. I think in my next studio, I want to have like all the synths and stuff already plugged in. So then I can just like move that way. But
yeah,
I don't know.
How much importance do you also put on like the environment feeling a certain way? I was listening to an interview with John Hughes, and because I like John Hughes, I guess, like everybody does. And he was talking about when they did, I think it was Breakfast Club, but he said that they built the library in a gymnasium, but then they also built like hallways around it that felt like school hallways. So before you even got in there, it felt like you were in a school, and then you got in there to shoot. I don't know. Do you put importance on that? Like, how does it feel in here when I'm recording?
No.
I
think like I'm not someone who's super environmentally affected. I do appreciate that I have windows in here, even though that is sonically not the best thing. It feels better. Right. But I don't know. This room's a mess, and there's just cables all over the floor. Like, I trip every time I get up. And there's no mood lighting or soundproofing or anything like that. So it just kind of feels like this weird white room. But I'm really able to tune that out, I guess. Because before I had this space, I used to record in my parents' garage, which was still like filled with crap that goes into a family's garage. So I'm just kind of like intermingling with like camping gear and stuff like that. So I guess it just like, it never bothered me in that way. I hate showing up in a studio that is like excessively curated in vibe with like kind of like hazy neon lights and like plants and plush furniture. I don't know.
Does it feel like corny? Does it feel like just like a cheesy, like, am I in Kiss or something?
I think to me, it's about like vulnerability. And in a room that feels cool, it's going to be hard to be vulnerable.
I see.
But if I'm in a room, so maybe it is environmental in a way because I'm actually actively cultivating anti-vibe or something, like where if the room is kind of a mess and in disarray, I'm able to like tap into a more emotionally raw place.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
We got somewhere today.
Yeah. But I also think, I don't know, because now I start to have like production clients come into this space. And that can be funny if they're expecting more. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is it. Sorry.
You're like, do you want me to move this half-eaten omelet? Or does
Yeah.
that stay?
Do you want
So,
coffee?
Yeah. As far as like your new stuff, you kind of reference your new stuff. Is there anything that you're particularly inspired by? What's going on moving forward for Runner as far as new recordings?
Whoa. I don't know if I'm allowed to say. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I finished the next record in April, but it doesn't come out until February.
Oh, it's
yeah.
done.
Yeah, it's done.
Cool.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I made 15 songs for it, but only 12 of them ended up on the album.
Mm-hmm.
And we're putting out just like one of those extra songs that didn't make it on the album as like a weird one-off single next week.
Oh, cool.
But then like the proper album rollout doesn't start until October.
Fall release.
Yeah, so October, November, January are the singles, and then February is the whole album.
Oh, cool.
Can
Yeah.
you say the title of it?
Not yet.
I'm just
Okay.
curious. I loved your last
Can you
album.
play us a full song of it?
I'm really excited about it. And yeah, since then, I've definitely been a little bit musically drained. I think I wrote my first song this year 2 days ago.
Oh.
Because I wrote the
okay.
last song for that
Interesting.
album December 2021. And then I spent so long recording it. And then I was on tour. And then I came
Mhm.
back. And now I'm doing music videos. So that's kind of where my creative energy is going.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get afraid when it's been too long and I haven't written a song that like something's lost. So then I try to just let it happen. So slowly coming back to it, but
Cool.
it takes a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, as far as like when you have such a long rollout and, me and Josh and I have never done anything like that where we're not just fully in control of it. Like, okay, we're just going to put it out right now. Do you feel far away from it? Like when it comes out, it feels so new for everyone. You're like, yeah, I'm actually moved past this, or does it?
Well, last year was definitely a long rollout because those were songs that I had written in like 2015, 2016, 2017 and put out on that album, but then like redid them in 2020 and then they came out in 2021. So felt like such an insane rollout that it didn't register as anything to me. I was like, oh, these are just the songs that are so like those songs are Runner songs to me. There are times that I'll forget that I've written other songs that exist in the catalog and I'll forget that they exist, but those like the first 5 songs on Always Repeating are like my first children. And so they're very special to me. And they kind of just always exist, so the rollout didn't feel too detached. This rollout, we'll see. I'm still very much in those songs because I'm doing all the music videos for them right now.
Right.
And I'm really excited for people to hear them. But February's a long way away. And
Yeah, right.
yeah. So
Yeah, we'll see.
ask me in February.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, how did it feel writing 15 new songs? Because like you said, Always Repeating, the first 5, you'd marinated on those for a while. I mean, I've seen so many videos of you guys playing Monochrome and Awash, and it just feels like you could play those in your sleep, I'm sure. And then like Snowplow was so good, and that's just Urgent Care.
That's just Urgent Care kind of reworked, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so you've really messed with them over and over and over. And didn't you remix them for Always Repeating those 5 that
I totally re-recorded them, which was fun
okay.
because I'd been playing them live so much and wanting to do things differently, like things I'd done on the recording that I wasn't super satisfied with, that now after having played it live for so long I could yeah, and I liked that. And then this new album kind of goes back to the way I used to work, which is where like I write and I record and then we start to play the songs live. And we haven't really tackled playing these songs live yet. So I don't know how much some of these are going to work.
Yeah.
But it also felt scary because, at least with Always Repeating, these were songs that I was really proud of and that I had stood behind for so long. So I felt really ready for them to come out and be heard. Whereas this next album is probably the most solitary thing I've done to date, and the fewest people have actually heard it. And I'm trying to like keep it that way so that I can practice being secure in my belief of these songs and not like being too swayed by how it's received by the rest of the world. But it's definitely nerve-wracking to be doing it this way again. But also kind of nice. Because I think what we were talking about before, like you play things with a band and then you get to the studio and it doesn't sound as good. And that's because you're so attached to that version that you've been creating live every time. But then when you start to, when you do a song and you record it first, there's nothing to get attached to, and there's nothing that you can't change in that moment. So there's no like concrete version of the song, which I think is really ripe for a lot of creativity. And there are certain songs on the album that I would have never been able to write before because they're like borderline unperformable.
Right.
So, and I'm excited that I had that experience making these songs. And then I've been thinking more about the next album, like post-tour and everything, trying to go back a little bit more to like a live band core. But yeah, for as nerve-wracking as it is to like be going it as solo as I did in this past album, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Was that partly due to like the pandemic? Just
Um,
being so solitary and not being with the band, or was that intentional the whole time?
I think a little bit of both. I think that, pandemic definitely, and then I hit a point where like people that I used to play with in the project like started getting busy with like other projects and like didn't have as much time for Runner, and I tried to like welcome that change as best I could and like, all right, now I really just get to experiment within myself and like not worry about what other people are going to think of various stages of the demo.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with creating music and then becoming maybe, I don't know, just like leaning on people creatively, and then I guess figuring out how to, I don't know, I think about it with like Josh plays guitar and I play guitar, but Josh plays guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of it, I'm just like, so there's so many times where like I write something on guitar and then I just like, I don't even have to be able to play it really. Like I can like kind of play it, and Josh will nail it.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know.
I get
them
that.
having to put all the weight on yourself. It's like, that's a change.
And like, I don't know, this is maybe not my favorite quality about myself, but sometimes I don't actually want anything from anyone else except for them to tell me that what I'm doing is great.
Yeah, dude, totally. Yeah.
It's very honest.
So yeah, and then
that.
it's like you have to call yourself out on that eventually. Like I'm only sending this so someone texts me back like, wow.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
You did it. And you can't go chasing that, especially early in the creative process, because when you don't get it, it's going to color your whole experience with that song. So as best, and that's why I keep like the title under wraps, and I'm just trying to keep it all a little bit more under wraps so that I can preserve this like belief in myself in all of this and not be weighing it on someone, like one of my friends just being like, dude, you platinum, you did it.
That's true. It's like, meanwhile, like they didn't even listen to it. You're like, what? Like,
no, and
no,
even if they didn't like it, they're not gonna text me back and be like, this is bad.
Right.
But if they don't gush about it, then I'm like, why aren't you gushing about it?
I know, yeah, 100%, yeah.
I was just listening to this book on writing by Stephen King, and he was talking about the creative process like that, where you're going to feel really tempted to show someone when you're excited about it and you're in the middle of your creative process, you're going to feel really tempted. And he's like, I implore you to to fight that feeling as much as you can until you're done with it, or at least like the first draft of it.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And then you can show it to someone like you trust, but then you're already excited about it and you've already done the whole creative process, because it'll definitely shift your thinking about it. It'll either make you think it's not worth pursuing or that it's better than it is. And it's just not good for the creative process.
Totally.
So
That's
I don't know. I see that with, I mean, he's a pretty accomplished writer.
Yeah, he knows making
right.
things.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up. I don't know. But it is interesting because that whole thing of like you have an idea in your head of it, and so that's almost what you hear when you're hearing the thing back that you recorded that's not finished, and you're like, oh, that's the thing. Right. It's like Jack White, I guess, said that he showed Seven Nation Army to like people like on tour, and he's like, and it's such a simple thing. He would show them the riff, and they'd be like, I guess, And then now it's like this, like essentially like
it's a soccer stadium anthem.
Yeah, it's a song that like people know, and they don't even know why they know it.
Yeah,
it's like a lullaby almost or something. It's crazy.
It is crazy. But that when song is as popular as it is.
Yeah, and then like it's funny that like I played guitar for like 2 months, and I'm like, oh wait, I can play this song. Like, it's such a, I don't know, but that probably speaks to simplicity being
universal
and all that stuff too, and everything. But I don't know, that whole thing's interesting though about protecting something before it's like done, because I think most people just won't understand at least the vision of it.
Yeah, and it's it's such a meme at this point of like, oh, here's this new song, but like, it's not mixed and I don't like the vocals. And like you're just like immediately prefacing it with all this crap. And if you're gonna say that, you're not ready to show it to anybody, because you're secretly just hoping they'll be like, dude, these vocals sound great and the mix sounds good. Like, you're done. And you just want someone to tell you that you're done.
Well, we started this conversation with you saying maybe you don't have a lot of strategic advice, but here it is.
Yeah.
Direct strategic advice.
That strategic advice is more like people who think that I'll have like a tip that will help them like get playlisted on Spotify.
Yeah,
or like all that stuff. Totally. And it's like, I don't know. That's a crap. That's a crapshoot. But
right.
If you wanna make a song, my only advice is just like do it and don't tell anybody.
That's cool. I like that.
I like that you at one point were in a band, and then you go, and I think you were playing some living rooms, and it's just like you and an acoustic guitar, and this is like kind of when Runner is starting to emerge, and that was really vulnerable, and I'm sure you can tell me how that felt, but you may feel something similar now with coming out with this whole new album of new songs that no one else has heard. Is that kind of the same vulnerability that you were feeling when you first started?
A little bit, and it's funny because the way that I feel vulnerable is maybe common for this field, but probably uncommon in the world. And it's that like I will sing a song to 10,000 people that's like super emo and like very vulnerable. And if I don't know them, then it's fine. But if I have to perform that song to like 5 of my friends, I can't do it.
Dude, yeah. I understand that.
And
sounds so much like Shelby.
So it's like, it's easier for me to be putting out music online and playing in cities that I don't live in and like all that. But like, I'm afraid for like my parents to hear it or like my close friends. And it's gotten easier because I've done it more. Each time it gets a little bit easier, I guess. But there's definitely a vulnerability that I kind of have to be ready for, but I'm still getting there, I think.
We were just talking about how that reminded me of Shelby, and there was another through line that reminded me of Shelby when I was reading an interview with you. You said that, you're kind of plagued with anxiety, and that has its downsides, obviously. But that when you get on stage, it feels like that kind of dissipates and you can just be present. And Shelby said a very similar thing. He's like, why would I feel comfortable singing on stage? He goes, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Comfortable saying hi to someone.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know. It's weird how anxiety will if you put it under pressure,
Mhm.
it might dissipate.
And I think
Before you did it for the first, sorry, go ahead.
I think it has to do with practice and warranted attention. Like,
Mm.
I hate my birthday because it feels like unwarranted attention, but I'm
Yeah, you
fine
didn't
to
earn
be
it.
on stage because it's like I really tried to get here.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I was going to ask what it felt like before you did it. Like, because for me, it was, we were going to play this Battle of the Bands thing and we weren't prepared. There was reasons for us to be nervous, but
Yeah.
I just remember being like absurdly nervous, like crazy nervous. And then I remember getting up there and being like, why am I not nervous now? Like it didn't make any sense to me. So I was like, did you have a similar experience where you thought maybe it would be worse than the experience actually is for you?
I don't know. I think I always wanted it so bad.
Oh, okay.
I think the first time I like played guitar and sang was like some sort of like middle school talent show.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to do it. I was kind of obsessed with like live music and bands at this point, and I would just be on YouTube watching bands, and it felt so detached from me that I was like, yeah, I just want to do that, and I was never really afraid of that.
Oh, that's cool.
Weirdly enough, because in every other aspect, I was very afraid.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It is interesting, yeah.
like I just have such a memory. Whenever it came out, TV on the radio, live on David Letterman in like 2006 or something.
Oh yeah.
And that
Wolf
was
Like
just,
Me?
yeah, exactly. That video. I was like, I want to do that. That's all I want to do.
Oh,
And
that's
I
so,
had
yeah.
I had like strangely no fear about it. The only real fear I felt like trying to pursue music was like the business side of it and like trying to like make it work as like
Okay.
a life. But the
Mhm.
performing, I just want to do it so bad that I almost don't have room to think about the other anxieties.
Dude, that makes sense, man. I don't know, that's cool. It's funny you reference live Letterman stuff because like me and Josh have like several like this specific performance, and it's from Letterman
Yeah.
usually, which I
Well,
don't understand
Because
why.
he had good taste in music. And
Okay.
because we didn't grow up with like Audio Tree and stuff like that. So
Right,
that was
KEXP,
yeah,
yeah.
that's the best that we had.
Great
That,
point.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
SNL, Letterman, Jay Leno has horrible taste in music, so like nobody. There's like Bon Iver doing Holocene on Conan, I think that's really good too.
Yeah, he also has cool
Yeah,
music taste.
he had
Yeah.
good. I've never watched an episode of late night TV, but I've seen so much.
Yeah.
Like so
Oh,
many
man.
music performances on YouTube.
I was just talking about this with my mom, how like every time like there's a compilation now of like David Letterman like coming out and just like asking the drummer,
Are those
like,
your
are those
drums?
your drums?
Yeah.
Or are they rentals? And it's just funny that it's like a built-in joke. Like my dad has a joke with like when he's around like little kids that are just like nervous because he's an adult, he'll just be like, hey, that's my hat, isn't it? And then the kid's like, what? This is my hat. And my dad's like, no, I think. Anyways, it's his go-to. He always does it. And it's always, I don't know, it's
Someone
funny.
was
But it's
trying
just
to
funny
explain
that
to me
David
that
Letterman
was
has
his
one of those.
code that he didn't like the band.
Oh, no.
But I don't know if that's true. That bums me out if it's true.
That would bum me out too.
Yeah.
There was this performance of this band called the Wigs on Letterman,
Uh-huh.
and I still go back to it. And I
I don't
still
even
watch
know
it.
that band.
Yeah, it was like Right Hand of My Heart, the Wigs, live on Letterman, and I was just like, and they sell out so hard at a certain point, and I'm just like, and I think that's what I like loved about it.
Yeah.
But it's funny that it's like Letterman.
Plus, they
I
look
don't
like
know.
they just walked off the street.
They
They were
have,
wearing
like,
like
hoodies,
hoodies
yeah.
and jeans, and that, I mean, we're in Texas, and we wore hoodies for like 4 gigs in a row, and I'm pretty sure it was because of that Wigs performance.
Nice. Nice.
It's like gonna have heat stroke,
Yeah,
but it's like
I mean,
it's worth it.
Yeah. There's great stuff out there. There's the first REM TV performance is like 1983 on Letterman. And like the first like early REM is like one of my favorite things from growing up. And Michael Stipe is so shy on TV that he doesn't do the interview. Like Letterman just talks to Peter Buck the whole time. And I think
really?
that it's a
That's cool.
crazy time capsule to have on the internet.
Yeah, it's like endearing.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
funny. I mean, I don't know if this tracks at all, but I was listening to Runner yesterday, and I wrote down REM. There was a
Really?
part in like maybe it was Capitano Stupido.
Captain Stupido.
Yeah.
The Thundercat cover.
Yeah, oh, no, that's what it was?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was Thundercat.
Yeah, a lot of
I
people,
thought it was you,
a
but
lot of people
just
don't. Well, all I did was take the lyrics and then I just like wrote new chords and a new song and
okay.
added 2 lines. But it's
So it's in a trench coat.
yeah,
it's pretty well disguised.
Yeah.
okay. I don't feel so dumb.
Most
but,
people don't realize that, but I don't think that I could consciously ever write the lyrics "beat your meat and go to sleep." But
yeah, I don't know why I wrote down REM and like Primitive Radio Gods. They have that song that talking on a photo booth or phone booth song that I really like, and something about the 90s drums and then like soft piano coming in. I
think it's or that guitar part, because I love, like, Peter Buck's one of my favorite guitar players, and I always like certain songs when you pick up a guitar and you like play without thinking. It's like Driver 8 and Carnival of Sorts. I just will like play without realizing it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's deep in there.
Yeah, that's cool.
One more thing I wanted to ask about before we let you go, if you have time, is just production. I mean, you're a full-on producer. You know, you have credits, and you went from paying people to make bad recordings of you to making your own. And how did you really find your legs as a producer, and how do you feel about producing?
I think I found my legs as a producer through a lot of trial and error. And what was the second part of that question?
How do you feel about it? Is it like a different creative, like, you know, especially when you're producing other people's music?
Yeah, I mean, I've really come to love it. And I think that the biggest thing for me in production was, I think about it similar to like cooking, which I think I've talked about in interviews before, is that you can keep yourself at arm's length by knowing that there's like a proper way to do things and like good engineering techniques and all this stuff. And if you feel like you don't have those mastered, then you're not really going to produce for real. But then there's also the aspect of it doesn't really matter how you've arrived at what you've made, but if you like it and it's working, then you're doing a great job. And like, you're a producer. And I think that it took me a long time to like accept that, because I don't know what I'm doing engineering wise. Like, I've got the one mic and I don't always know where to put it. But so much of it is just trusting your gut and being like, oh, I like the way that sounds, and that's okay. And I think getting to produce for other people is interesting, because things that feel really simple or second nature to me, I forget that there was a time that like I didn't know how to do that, and like that would have been important for me to know 8 years ago. So people are like, oh wow, like that's so simple. And I'm like, yeah. And then I sometimes feel bad, like, oh, they could probably learn to do this also. But then sometimes I think that like this is how it needed to go. So it's hard. I definitely, you know, I guess I'm describing like struggling with some level of like imposter syndrome, of feeling like I'm in my like ramshackle studio setting up one mic and giving you kind of like a subpar engineering treatment, but trying to hold space for that trust that like someone is coming to work with me because they like the things that I've done so far, and I just need to trust my taste and my abilities to execute what I like and what I know. But that's a very intangible space to like hold within yourself. So yeah, I think that 50% of the battle of like trying to become a producer is just familiarizing yourself with, you know, a sonic palette that you feel good about and comfortable with and can like execute on a technical level. But then the other half of the battle for me has really just been like accepting that what I'm doing is valuable, because I think that a lot of people can make good stuff but are quick to discredit it because it's not done like the right way or something, and everyone's kind of like gatekeeping themselves from being a producer.
Yeah, totally. The definition of producer is interesting, and where it blends with being an engineer and stuff, and my understanding of even what it is sometimes difficult. And like going down the rabbit hole of like Rick Rubin, and it's like, what does Rick Rubin do anyways? And then, I think something that he kind of, I don't know if he said this or what, but just kind of getting out of the way and elevating whoever he's working with to
Yeah.
be the most them.
And that's something that I really adhere to too. I think Rick Rubin's awesome. I mean, like, I love System of a Down, and I think that he is unbelievable for those records. But when I'm working with someone, at the beginning, I always tell them, like, at the end of the day, I'm trying to give you the song that you want. I'm not going to push my own agenda, because, like, I have my own music for that. And this is your song for the rest of your life, and I'm going to forget about it in a couple of years. I'm sorry, but like, that's what's going to happen, because you're going to play it, you're going to live with this recording, and I'm like super happy to be involved with it, but I don't want to end up giving you something that you're like, oh, this kind of isn't exactly what I had in mind for the song. Like, I just want to help you reach the best version of your song. And yeah, cool. Defining the role of the producer is hard, because it can mean so many different things, and it means so many different things in different genres too. Like in hip hop, you're kind of making the whole instrumental a lot of the time. But if you're producing a band, like with Rick Rubin, someone was saying he produced that Slipknot album, and they were very unsatisfied with like how present he was, because he just allegedly like laid on the couch the whole time. But maybe that's what he felt like they needed. He needed to get out of the way or something. I don't know. Yeah. But I think ultimately the most succinct way I can describe the role of the producer is they cultivate the recording, that specific recording. Right. And whether that's actually arranging the instruments, playing the instruments, or just getting the musicians to give a performance that's going to be, a good representation of that song. There's like a lot of ways to get there. But I think that's kind of at the core of being a producer.
Yeah.
I know you helped produce Skull Crusher's album, Helen, and how picky are you with who you produce?
Not. I think if I can identify that someone has like a real desire to make music, I want to help them, because I remember being so frustrated when I felt like I had all this music I wanted to make and I couldn't make it.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
So, yeah, I mean, I try to just like work with as many people as I can, as even if it's not always exactly my taste or whatever. And like, commercial things aside, having a song that you made, that you recorded, that exists outside of your body is kind of an amazing feeling. And
it's special,
yeah, like just that, it's that magic feeling of having your first demo and just listening to that and be like, I made this. And if nothing else, like, that's what I want to help somebody get. Like, I don't care if I produce a song for somebody and it never comes out.
That's really cool, man.
Very cool. Well, we always end with asking someone, what is a band or a song that you're into right now? Because we're going to put your song, one of your songs, and the song that you pick, or songs, on our Couch Radio Spotify playlist. So is there a song that you are inspired by or just really into?
What did I just listen to yesterday that I was like taken by?
The phone grab is, I feel like we're 14 for 14 on the phone grab as far as these episodes go.
You gotta check it out.
I think, I don't know, like,
I would too.
A song that I feel very much affected by, I didn't even find it. The phone grab was unnecessary. It would have been way cooler if I didn't grab the phone. Abacus by Fionn Reagan.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know the song.
Yeah, incredible. It's on an album called The End of History that my friend Kevin, field medic, his like whole career is like him wanting to make that album for himself, and he turned me on to it, and it's an incredible album. And then Abacus got sampled in that Bon Iver song 0000 million. So if you know that song, you'll
really?
you'll know the hook of Abacus.
Oh,
But
cool.
I was listening to it this morning while I had my coffee, and I was just like, this is just maybe one of those perfect songs. It's so beautiful.
I always love it when you hear like I don't realize something is a sample, and then I hear the original version of it, and I'm like, oh wait, this is from that. I think we were talking about this with that Primitive Radio God song. I was like just referencing the BB King track that like the sample is from on the phone with him, and he's like, I didn't even know that was from that or whatever. I like that though. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy going back and being like, oh, and then finding it later. It's just cool to me. It's fun.
Listen to that Thundercat song too. You're gonna be
Yeah, that'll be cool. Like a little different.
Yeah.
Analyze the differences.
yeah.
Dude, thank you so much. You've been so
Yeah, thanks,
generous
man.
with your
Cheers,
time.
man.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Peace.
I don't know who it is, but we could probably trace it back to a myriad of people that aren't me. I refuse to take responsibility for anything in my life because I shouldn't have to.
Shouldn't have to. And you don't.
And I won't.